So today, I'm back in my home state of Pennsylvania, and one of the best parts about being up north this time of year is watching all the leaves change color.
Howdy, folks.
As September ushers us into October. I've also got some really exciting plans for Halloween, like exploring haunted places, checking out spooky attractions, telling ghost stories around a campfire, and just diving very deep into the Halloween festivities, all while bringing you guys along with me. I have a relative who has a few acres of land, and I was given permission to make myself at home and set up camp anywhere I desire. So I figured I'd bring you guys along with me for my first stop in my Pennsylvania adventure.
Found the perfect spot. I'm gonna let my equipment charge because the batteries are getting low. And in the meantime, I am going to cook dinner because I am starving. Now that I'm all set up, I can get some other stuff done. So tonight I was given a request to tell a story of an experience that someone had. And after listening to her story, I don't believe a word of it, but I thought it would be really cool to retell it for all of you. So I told her I would share it, and I figured this would be a really good idea because now that we're reaching the Halloween season, and her story it's bizarre, it's terrifying. I mean, if it actually was real, if it actually did happen, I mean. So this all took place back in July of 2018. At the time, Hannah was 28 years old. She was an aspiring wedding photographer, and she had landed a really good paying gig that was being held at a venue nestled in the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee. Now, of course, this venue is probably how you imagine it. It was very scenic. It was like something out of a storybook. It was a very serene landscape with mountains in the background. Probably a place where just about anybody would want to get married. So like any traditional wedding, the wedding eventually came to an end, probably around 11 p.m. The DJ played the last song, everybody packed up, and everybody left. Hannah got in her car and was tired because she had a long drive ahead of her, and she proceeded to go down some rural country back roads where she had a little bit of issues. Everybody knows that when you drive on those back roads, you always have issues with GPS and having cell phone service. Her GPS was malfunctioning. She's going down this lonely country road, and eventually she gets to a Y, and she wasn't really sure which way to take, so she just kind of used her intuition. Eventually, her GPS signal came back, she eventually reached a scenic overlook that was peering over mountaintops going down into a valley. There was like a lake at the bottom, and that night the moon was full, so you could see the reflection of the moonlight was glimmering into the water. So she decided to pull over at a scenic overlook and started taking pictures with her. She had special nighttime lenses and things like that. And eventually, so as she's snapping photos of the moon and the landscape around her, storm clouds started coming in and obscuring the moonlight. And that's when she realized the wind was picking up a little bit, and she could smell that smell in the air right before it's about to rain. She knew that there was probably going to be a thunderstorm coming. So she got in her car and kept proceeding on the route. So eventually, as she's driving, the storm clouds come in, the wind starts picking up, and all hell breaks loose. It was raining so hard that she couldn't see what was in front of her. So she had to pull over and wait for the rain to slow down. Eventually, the rain slowed down. She was able to continue driving. And eventually, as she's driving, it started getting worse again. The country back road that she was on, it was dirt and gravel, and it was extremely narrow. So there really wasn't room for like a passing vehicle to go by. And as she noticed that, she saw a set of headlights way off in the distance. As this vehicle kept approaching and getting closer, she could hear that they were honking their horn. I guess once they had saw her headlights, they had let on the horn the whole time, and they started speeding. And eventually, she could make what the vehicle was. It was a big pickup truck. They were driving so fast, and who would drive like that in the middle of a storm on that kind of a road? It was a mystery to her. So they're driving and they're approaching, they're getting closer, and they're beeping their horns, and eventually her driver's side mirror gets completely taken out, completely destroyed. So at this point, she's upset, she's angry, and she's really scared, like, what is going on? Like, why would someone do this? So she kept going down the road, and the wind is blowing really hard, and as she gets down a couple miles from there, she comes to a dead stop, because there is this massive tree laying in the middle of the road. So now she has to like turn around. She can't keep continuing down this road. And it's so narrow, how is she going to be able to do that? So she has to do probably a 20-point turn, I would imagine. She noticed, okay, the rain stopped. She can get out and make sure that her tire's not going to hit the edge of the road or whatever. She wanted to make sure she wasn't going to get stuck. So she got out a couple times to make sure that she wasn't going to hit anything. And all of a sudden she hears all these footsteps while she was turning around. She saw just herds of deer running. They were running across the road and back up into the woods. You could hear the sounds of like just running that just echoed all throughout the forest. She thinks maybe there was close to 100 of them. She just said she never saw anything like it. So she gets back in her vehicle and she starts driving away. All of a sudden, once she finally starts to get turned around so that she can go back in the direction that she came from, all of a sudden hears a big thump. It's like she ran over something. She's putting her foot on the gas, but her vehicle isn't moving. It's like it's stuck. You know, she's throttling the gas and pushing on the pedal, and it's just not moving. She puts it in park and she gets out. She uses her cell phone light to see what's going on. She looks at her back tires, and she said that it looked like vines had grown around her tires and were stopping her tires from moving. She said it was the most bizarre thing she had ever seen. And as she shined her light up, she saw what looked like a pair of arms attached to it. And all of a sudden, this thing started approaching her car. So she gets back in her car and she slams on the gas. Whatever it was getting closer to the car. Somehow this was like an appendage that was attached to this thing. And she said that as it got closer, she could see that it looked like an insect-like creature that had all these limbs. She said that the noise that it made was like anything she had ever heard before, and it was absolutely terrifying. She said that it was like a loud screeching sound, and it was like pulling the car closer. This thing was pulling her car down. So she's like trying to drive away, and her car is slowly sliding towards this thing. She just could not break free from it, and she didn't know what to make of it. Like, her mind, I guess the way she described it is, like, you don't know what to think. Like, the whole thing seemed fake. She said there's no way to wrap your head around something like that. So you're just like, you're scared, but at the same time, you're like, is this really happening? Like, how does something like this even exist? This thing is pulling her vehicle closer to it. She's spinning her tires so much that I guess eventually she could see smoke was building up. And eventually this thing, whatever it was, just completely let go. And she was able to break free from whatever it was. And she just kept driving. She eventually had to pull over to Google where county and what township she was in so that she could go to the police department and file a report about the hit and run incident. She said when she looks back at everything that happened, that whoever was driving the vehicle going in the opposite direction must have encountered that same thing. That would make sense. If this all really did happen, which, like I said, if you ask me, I think somebody just had a very long day of work and they were tired. That's just my thoughts. I don't know what to make of it. Even though I don't believe, it's like thinking and talking about that stuff while you're like camping in the woods is definitely scary. Oh boy. Now I'm starting to get creeped out.
Last night, I found it extremely difficult to fall asleep. Every noise in the woods kept me awake. I kept getting startled. After telling that story, I think it just kind of messed with my head. And then on top of that, when I finally did start to fall asleep, it started raining very hard. So I figured just to feel a little bit more comfortable and to help me fall back asleep, I walked back to my Jeep and I decided to just sleep inside there for the night. Well, anyways, it's good to be back in Pennsylvania, where I can enjoy the month of October and indulge in festivities. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the flip side.